welcome to episode 7 on Switch On Network. We look forward to a great guest today. He is known as Mr. President. So before we get into that, make sure that you do like and subscribe. It is Switch On Network. We are bringing you a top conversations week in, week out. I have the privilege of sitting with a man that I've known for many years. We've known him as a president of the Players Union in South Africa. That's why they call him Mr. President. It is Gaoshubelwe. Sir, I know I probably butchered it again, but I'll ask you to introduce yourself.
No, you definitely are switched on, Mark. So you said it very well.
Did I say I got it right this time? I'm glad.
Absolutely.
I'm glad. Sir, it's a pleasure always to sit with you, a man of your experience and knowledge, and someone who's been through the trenches of South African football, if I could call it that, because we know the pitfalls. There's so many challenges that we are faced with in South African football. Tell us more about your tenure with the South African Football Players Union, because there is such a thing. I myself have been a footballer and I've sat at Kosata House a couple of times in meetings. You've been there for 20 years. Tell us about that.
It's been 20 years, Mark. I think it is important to state this fact that I'm a former footballer. I've played the game.
Yeah.
At the, of course, level of the Premier Soccer League. But my passion has always been about justice for footballers. Fortunately for me, when I was still a small young boy, vets wanted to sign me. It was during the time of John Latham, but my parents refused. They insisted that I go to school first. So I went to varsity, got my degrees and all that. I did your economics. I was told that I'll be an economist and all that.
Yeah.
But that's not where the heart was. My heart was in football, where I would learn quite a number of things, a lot. I mean, you have people who, the space sometimes is not forgiving. It's very unforgiving. You hear views like your Nadims. They will hate you as a footballer there without necessarily looking at other things.
Yeah.
But there would have been a lot of exploitation in the game. You know, I mean, you'd know that I was with the union, like you said, 20 years. The union was formed in 97. Been with it. I was a member since 2000. I joined it. I became the deputy secretary in 2004. Went to secretary, then I became the president for almost 8 years.
Okay.
But I can tell you that there are quite a number of things that we've done. There's a lot that we've achieved. There's still a lot that still needs to be achieved within the game. Can talk, I mean, you said we've had a number of meetings, a lot at that, trying to really inculcate this whole thing of equal rights, the culture of, standing up for your rights and this and that. And I think we've made a whole lot of positive strides in the game. When you look at, just the wins that we've had at this particular point, without necessarily going and talking about the challenges that we are faced with from the SAFA aspect. You've got at the professional level, you've got your National Dispute Resolution Chamber that we had, to ensure that is established. We have agreed on the issue of the standard contract, the very same standard contract that doesn't have proper rights for the footballers. Yeah. When you look at the standard contracts in South African football, you see that most rights with the clubs. The responsibility of the clubs is only to pay the salaries, but everything else has to be done that. But we achieved all that. And that for me, it was one of the goals that I thought, wow, we've really done something that's good. There are outstanding issues that we can talk to. Issues of your minimum wage, why we're not having minimum wage. There is issues that we have raised with the leagues of financial fair play. We've got our own views around the issues of financial fair play.
I mean, you speak about a minimum wage. That's something that's been coming on for many years. That the demand for it or the need for it, but it hasn't really transpired.
No, absolutely, Mark. But these things, they must be married together, because it's not only a minimum wage in the sense of minimum wage. When we started, it was SABC that were the main sponsor of the league. Then became these other entities, so that we don't give them a lot of coverage in your space, those entities which are now the anchors and stuff and all that. But I think the problem where it sits with the issues of minimum wage, it's around the issues of sponsorships. We've raised this issue, and I think the sponsorship in this country is still very much white. Mm. And when the sponsorship is very white, a lot of money would not come into football. Now, yes, I know there's issues, and I'm not making any excuses. For the clubs here, I don't carry no mandate for them. They need to professionalize and make sure that they market their teams, they get money and so forth and whatnot. But we are sitting with a situation where sponsorship as we know it, we are told that Betway put a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We strongly advocate. We've made a study on this at the time. This is about 10, 12 years ago when we did the study. That informed us that the NFT players were supposed to be getting about at least 15 grants. Players.
An NFT?
At the level of the NFT. Mm-hmm. That's what they were supposed to be getting. And you can get 35. And the reasons we would have advocated for the minimum wage is simply that you have players coming from the ABC. When you come from the ABC, Mark, it's either you come from ABC, you come from development, you're not going to earn a good salary.
Yeah.
We're on the papers all along on the issue of Bvuma. When we found out that Bruce was getting 5,000, Chiefs was paying Bruce 5,000. But when Bruce was playing for a national, for a PSL, for the first team, he said, no, but how is this happening? We approached Chiefs, of course, the rest is history, and we paid and they paid that. But I'm saying the issue of the sponsorship, so that I don't forget this point. If we can address the issue of the sponsorship, such that a lot of money comes into football, is invested in football, we would then be able to address these fundamental issues of players having a minimum wage, retirement fund, and so forth and whatnot.
So, but when you say, like you made a statement, you said it's still very white.
That's very white.
Maybe quantify that. Like, what exactly do you mean by that?
Look, the sponsorship in South Africa remains white. And this is in comparison to cricket, rugby, which are really white sports.
Yeah.
When you look at these games, whether you go to let's say you go to the World Cup, let us see how much money is pumped into these sporting codes.
Yeah.
At the level of development, at rugby level of development in cricket, there are lots and lots of money because white companies are able to pump a whole lot of money into the game, but the same cannot be done with football. We can talk about the issues of administration to say probably our administrators are not doing a very good job or
could be better,
be better and stuff and all that. But I'm saying go to whether you go to these private schools, rugby's played, it's sponsored. There's a Craven Week and stuff, but you're not going to get that in the South African football space and all that. So it's my view, and it's my held view that sponsorship remain very white. People who want to pump money and have got money in this country, they do that. Remember when the former cricket player, Graham Smith, was appointed at cricket.
Yeah.
People were already ready to say, let us pump money in cricket, let us do that, all that. But that is not going to happen in terms of that. So those divides are still there and they're happening.
So in terms of getting the likes of a minimum wage where players are paid a decent salary, and again, a minimum set salary, that's not feasible without sponsorship.
Man, you'd know better. We've had so many cases. By the way, I serve as I'm part of the FIFA player status chamber, in the football tribunal.
Yeah.
So we deal with these issues at that level. My term is coming to an end at the end of the year. So it was a 4-year term, serving there. Now, there's issues of late payment. here at home. I'm just saying here at home, late payment, players are not paid.
Yeah.
Typical example, MaMkhize could not pay, they owe. SARS, they do that. But when you look at the entire football space, you realize that indeed, there is no money to really take care of what needs to happen. Now, to the extent that that happens, we really need to ensure that we have money so that players get a proper, they are able to retire from what they would be earning and so forth. And I'm not saying, Mark, without sponsorship, there would not be, or there shouldn't be minimum wage. I'm saying to you, to enhance that which the players would be able to get and to enhance that aspect, we need, all these role players to come on board and doing that. But this cannot be used as an excuse why you cannot have a minimum wage. But what would be that minimum wage if we are not going to get money into this space for us to be able to do that?
I mean, we've seen cases over the years where, especially when it comes to the financial aspect, players' representation, whatever the case may be. What is the primary role of a players' union? I mean, I know you sit on the global body as well, but ultimately, what should players expect from the players' union? What is their primary role?
The primary role of the union is to negotiate collectively for the players, to deal with issues such as your retirement fund. Currently, when you retire, Mark, sometimes you don't know whether you are still playing or you retire when you wake up tomorrow and all that. All right? Now, you'd have to wait. We've raised these issues, gone to all these financial institutions, that you need to have players retiring at the age of 35. This is the discussions that we've had with the league. So players at least they must retire at the age of 35, but we need to create a kitty, all right? And that kitty, players must contribute. Both the club and the players must contribute
to the kitty.
Kitty. So that at the age, let's say 7.5% maybe from a player or whatever the percentage from the clubs. So that when you retire at the age of 35, you are then able to go back and tap that. And we got this thing way in Europe. Yeah. That's how it happens. You know, I remember in 2008-9, Thabang Molefe, I don't know what year was it. Yeah, around that, Thabang Molefe played in France at some point. And the French guys, they called us. So we've been looking for this player. They've been saving, you know, and these are the savings. And at that particular time, you are then able to get your money. So those issues, they become very critical and important. The tax issues. You are a player. You earn, let's say, 100,000. In terms of the South African tax law, what does that mean? It means you'll be taxed around 45 to 47%.
It's massive.
How long is your contract, Mark? It's 2-3 years.
2-3 years at best.
When you start playing football, you earn 10,000 rand. When you get to probably a top team, they give you 100,000.
That's in the latter part of your career.
The latter part. When you're 27, when they are going to tell you that you are now old. All right? Now you are old, and when Cannavaro and them, they win the player of the tournament at the World Cup when they are 36 and so forth. But here at home, you'll be told you are old. But of course, you yourselves as podcasters and media people, you contribute to that, because if I play with Morgan and Morgan is 35 and I outsprint him, then he's no longer good. But when I outsprint a young boy, that young boy is still growing and so forth. But we tend to forget about
the narratives are very different.
The narrative, you know what I mean? Now, it becomes a problem. 2 years you play, or you get lucky, you play for 5 years, you earn 100,000. How much would go out of that money? How much would you have lost?
I mean, that's 45%.
The system in this country, the financial system, is based on what? On credit. And the only way you're going to have assets or anything to your name, mostly, is when you are able to prove that in terms of credit, you credit worthy, and you'll then be able to get that money. So those issues, they need to resonate, and they need to be on the desk and the table of the union. They need to raise them. We've raised them. We've addressed Lekgotla. We raised them at the time when I was there with the Lekgotla of the African National Congress. We've spoken with the ministers. Everybody said, no, it will be done. It cannot be done because this is seasonal workers. If you do that, everybody else, including the garbage collectors, they would want that. But we said it's different. It's different in the sense that when you look to football in general, they encourage, when it comes to who benefits, tourism and all other sectors, they do benefit from this thing. So the union has the responsibility to talk about that.
Yeah.
The union, what is expected of you as a footballer as well, is to ensure that, is to ensure that not only does the union represent you, but you yourself, you really need to understand what this union is about and where is it taking you. Okay.
No, you say that, and I wanted to ask that question. In terms of player buy-in for the union, what has that been like? I mean, I think that's a bit of a challenge. And one other thing, you're speaking about retirement as well. When players get injured, I know I've heard experiences of players get injured, and apparently, and I speak, about a certain player who apparently bankrupted the insurance fund where he got injured and he got paid out, and then from there was no more money for players who have to retire because of injury. All those kind of things. What's the reality in that space?
That's absolute rubbish. Whoever told you that, they're telling you nonsense, because it is not true that the player can bankrupt. Because the players are covered by Delphi Show.
Okay.
Unit list. They've got, FIFA demands that for every professional team, there must be, players must be insured.
Okay.
Now, let's just take the PSL insurance, which is Delphi Show. This is how it's structured. When you're injured, it is very important that players, when they are injured, they really need to report the injury. They must follow the rehabilitation process if it is there, firstly, because if they miss out on that, let's say, God forbid, this player is unable to go back
to recover
and all that, he can go and claim. Now, this is where the calculation comes. They'll say 60 months. 60 months. What is 5 months? 60 months. 60
it's
months.
5 years.
5 years. 60
months.
months.
Yes,
60 months. Yes, 60 months times your salary.
Wow.
All right. That's what you'd get. Now, here's the difficult. If you earn 8,000, like we had the other time, there's some, in this day and age,
still
there was a player at Royal AM who was earning what that we saw in there. That's very diabolical. But you have 60 times that salary. So it depends on how much you're going to get. If you're getting 10,000, what is 60 times that? Is 600. Okay. It's 600,000 divided by 2, because it's 60 times your salary divided by 2. Why divide by 2? Because the clubs, in terms of that policy, they claim to say, we are paying premiums. So therefore, if you get whatever the amount that comes out of
half of that,
half goes to the club. So when the club says, no, we'll give you, so you are at the mercy of the club to where they give you. Remember, there was this boy from Polokwane City, when City was involved in that crash, the accident. I think 2 players passed
away. Yes.
But there's Kamogelo. I forgot his surname. This boy is wheelchair bound. All right.
I remember this. Yeah.
He was earning about 6,000. Now you go to the club and the club says, no, we're paying out, we're giving him an insurance, and that's it. The same goes with this cover in terms of the funeral. Okay. Now, if you're earning 100,000, okay, you'll get more. But this thing is capped.
Players don't
at
know
4 million. It's capped.
Oh, okay.
At 4 million. The payout is capped.
So you can't get more than 4 million.
You can't get more than 4 million. That's what I'm saying is nonsense. Whoever tells you that it bankrupts the kitty or the policy or the fund or whatever you call it, it is not true, because the max that you can get, it's 4 million. If the club says, no, we want our 50%, you take your 2 meter, they take their 2 meter, and that's it. So it is not true that this thing happens. But players must be encouraged, as we've always done, to say in my time there, I used to tell them, take added insurance. and do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And this is where the space where the union also ought to play. But sometimes the union doesn't get the necessary support when it comes to these financial issues from the very same players to say, okay, let us pilot this thing for once. And such that the union can have their own policy, help the players to get their money and all that. And that it will pay you more once you cannot play football anymore, once there's a funeral at home and so forth. But most players do not know about these policies. Yeah. Worse off, the clubs themselves, they don't even know how this thing is really structured.
Yeah. So again, I have to ask you, you keep speaking about it in the past tense. You say when I was. So we'll get back to that in a second. Yeah. We'll get back to that in a second. But again, now player buy-in. That's, like I remember being a player. I know the club deducted my 1%, I think it was. But I don't know how much I actually knew about, behind the scenes. When it comes to a lot of players have agents. Some don't. Some have credible agents. Some have, guys who don't really know what they're doing. What's your experience in that regard? Because I look at the Swallows case recently. Apparently, the players that had good representation got sorted out. The others kind of got a raw deal. How does the different entities, when it comes to the agent, the player, the union, how do they work together? What's the difference and what could be done better in that space as well?
Look, FIFA itself, the mother body, provides for the existence of all these stakeholders. You have, even when you have your own cases, they don't pay you. You are able to take them to these chambers that we preside on.
Yeah.
You can be an agent, they'll deal with your meta coach, players, and so forth. However, here at home, there are a lot of fly-by-night agents. And I think that's what it is. They are only agents as soon as you must go sign a contract. But after signing a contract, nothing. And sometimes, you see, Mark, the problem of, I think we hate reading sometimes. We don't even know what this contract, we just want the bottom line, which is, am I earning 50? I'm good.
Okay.
You go, you take a switch on network sponsorship. Okay, in that, so you'll do so many things that will give you 100,000 at the end. You are interested in 100,000. But you don't read. You don't know what's happening. I come here. They said probably they'll give me 100 of these T-shirts and so forth. I take these T-shirts. I give you 2 as a player. Each time, or a typical example. Let me make a very simple example. You sign a Bvuma sponsor.
Yeah.
Footballers, they love soccer boots. In that sponsorship, they say you'd get in a year, you'd get about 12 soccer boots, pair of soccer boots. All right. I take them, I give you 2, and I tell you that I bought that for you. I've dealt with these things over the years because we are so ignorant it hurts. Yeah. When it comes to this particular aspect. Now, if we are or we want to go anywhere as ourselves, we need to start properly supporting this union. And there is no excuse to say, I didn't know about the union.
Yeah.
It can be. This is your trade. You work in that space. I cannot say, I don't know that in this day and age, there are podcasts. You know what I mean? It becomes a very lame excuse. And I think the buy-in of the players at the time was great, and I want to believe that it is still great. And I also see it now on the continent, which at an appropriate time I'll come and tell you about this continent journey that I'm traveling now, because there are quite a number of countries that I'm working with, in relation to organizing and ensuring that these players become, protected.
Okay, I think it's a very interesting space, and for me, I've always been worried about like you say, the players' knowledge of what their rights are and what they can demand. But I still feel that in decision making in the football space, the players are the least. Players are considered last. So we've seen it over the years when clubs are bought and clubs relocate and all these kind of things. All that are unilateral decisions, and the players are always considered last in that whole process. How do we do better in that mind? And player power, I feel like players almost have no power. And I generally say it's because of the abundance of talent in this country. It's almost like if one player stands up, he's just replaced, he's removed. And, there's so many players waiting in the wings for that opportunity. Is that a reality where, players are expendable, pretty much expendable in this country?
Mark, let me make this example. I think players themselves, the union itself, without the players, doesn't have power. You can speak all you want. They can go even tomorrow that speak, that. But without the backup, and then backing up doesn't mean just take a membership, form, you fill it in, you take 1%, you are gone. Let's take the case in point, Banyana.
Yeah.
Banyana, they don't get, Danny wants to take this kid's money and use it. And now we know why he wanted to take their money. We see that he got some 10 million for himself there. Now he wants to take this money for himself. But we know, and at the time I knew myself because I was part and parcel of the people that negotiated the benefits of Banyana at FIFPro and FIFA level.
Yeah.
So I knew exactly what was going to be coming the players' way. Now they say, no, they can't give them bonuses. They're not going to give them that. They don't want to change 1-2. But we had the buy-in and the support of Banyana. When we were making noise, we made it because we knew these people are with us.
They stand with you.
They stood with us. But we were fighting for their rights.
Yeah.
Who benefited out of it? They benefited.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fundamental difference between Banyana and Majita.
Okay.
Majita sometimes, when you say to them, but wait, there is this point, you need to get this much, and I know we'll do it. Because then you will go to 1 or 2, the divide and rule, and say, but you guys can negotiate and talk for yourselves. Majita is now in these instances, these champions.
Yeah. African champions,
They came back. What did Danny say? No, there's no money. We'll look at when they go to the World Cup, we'll give them something. What nonsense is that?
Yeah.
That's absolute rubbish. But this is part and parcel of the union because you see, the union cannot only be seen as this thing that speaks for the players.
Yeah.
It must concern itself also about who becomes the president of SAFA, who leads football, and they need to raise these issues sharply.
Yeah.
And when they raise these issues sharply, then at least we will begin to go there. In my time, by the way, they had invited us to become the special member of SAFA. I refused.
Okay.
Yes. Then we called the NEC. I spoke to the players. I explained to them why that decision would be suicidal.
Yeah.
The decision would have been suicidal because when you go there, you only have 1 vote. You sit with the NEC members, everybody's got votes, they've got 10, 15 and all that. Now it means even if you can go sit in that structure and have discussion and all that, you disagree on a matter, you may not go outside and address that because that would be ill discipline. All right? But you'd always go and rubber stamp whatever happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And we felt at the time that it would not have been a great idea because in any event, you've got a cooperation agreement with SAFA. If you want to have bilaterals, then you can have those discussions. But the responsibility is really to talk about this whole thing of SAFA to say, what is this development and what is that? And in all frankness.
I recall end of the 2008-2009 season, we were all at Kosato House. We had a meeting and we said, if we're going to get anything, that was the right time. I think the union at that time was calling players to strike for the new season not to start because obviously all eyes were on South Africa before the World Cup. But like you say, players were not willing to stand for that and not willing to come together. Do you ever see that happening where players feel like they can take a stand? Because the reality is at the moment, it's your livelihood that you're putting at risk. Is there going to come a point where players will be like, enough, and we will be able to stand together and say, we want certain things and we're not prepared to move forward? Do you ever think players will go on a strike, if we can call it?
Freedom of movement, Mark. in the football space. Where did it start? That when your contract ends, what happened? They would hold on to your clearance. They would not give it to you. It took Mark Bosman.
Bosman ruling.
The Bosman ruling.
Yeah.
It took Kotse here in South Africa for you to be free.
Yeah.
You know, and go wherever you want to go. The Kotse ruling. Okay. Now I'm saying to you, and you asked a question earlier. Let's just go back to that before we finish. You asked a question to say there was a Swallows matter. What happened there? It's an issue of divide and rule. It's an issue of the stomach. You know, this thing of thinking for ourselves, just to say, okay, it's fine. I'm not going to fight my battles. Let somebody else, do it for them. We had all those players, but it's about sacrifices. If you sacrifice today, you are likely to benefit tomorrow and become a better person.
Sure.
You understand? Now, Swallows, we met with them. Remember, they were not paid. Swallows. We had a meeting with them before the game when they were to play Sundowns. We informed the team at the time, and we even informed the league to say, this is what would happen. Sundowns would not, Swallows would not
play. Yeah.
And the players are great. They moved with us. They were charged frivolously. They were charged. But we said, guys, we have a case here.
Yeah.
But players, because they depend on that salary sometimes, and sometimes because this thing has been inculcated in our minds that says, if you don't play, you'll never play football again because I'll make it very difficult for you. They were approached individually. No, we throw your case, come back, we'll give you work. Don't go with this case. And remember, one of the things that confused them, there was a Jali matter.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, I was very disappointed that he then opted not to go with everybody else, but he ran to the league and he lost this case. So on the strength and the basis that he had lost this case, without them understanding the merits why he lost this case, a lot of players.
It cast a shadow over.
A shadow of doubt. And they said, no, it's fine, we will lose. But those that remained with the union, they got all their monies.
Yeah.
Out of this game. And if there's anything that the union did very well, is that previously when teams were sold, you just sell the club, change destination, move from here to there without necessarily cancel the contract because they'll just buy a status. Now you can no longer just buy the status. If you've got the contract, you must buy it as a going on person, and that's where we are.
I guess it's an ongoing topic, and I think there's so much that we still need to delve into in terms of what players' rights are and players, I guess, understanding their rights. In kind of wrapping up, you've been speaking a lot in the past tense. Let's just get some clarity. Mr. President, you're not president necessarily of the Players Union anymore.
No, not at this point. I took a huge leap, and yes, I'm no longer the president of the union at this particular point. However, I want to, like I said to you, in good time we'll let you know, because my responsibility now on the continent.
Yeah.
And we are just busy, should I say cooking something on the continent, but not like Nabi cooks. But yes, we in good time will be able to let you know how far we are. But I think it will be wrong of me as a football lover not to really also appreciate and give credit to the technical director of the former technical director of SAPA. Because I know a lot of people, they give credit to Danny and them. They've done well. They've done this and that and the other. I don't think Danny deserves that. The technical director, when he came, firstly, remember, as a country would have failed in terms of Vision 2022 and all that. But when this technical director came, put on programs in place, and these benefit that we are getting now of these World Cups, of these junior teams winning, must be given to them, must be given to the teams that have released those players and so forth. Much is not being said about that. We are only hearing about Danny and less about the scandal and the criminal cases that he's doing on.
I mean, again, I can't really speak to that side of things because I don't really know too much about that. But I've been very vocal, and I have to echo that. I believe that the former TD, and it's sad in my mind that we're even calling him the former TD, because clearly someone who's done such good work, why would he not continue? Why would he not be kept on board? Because, like you said, we're seeing the fruits of exactly, his labor with the various junior national teams now qualifying for World Cups when we weren't even qualifying for AFCONs in the past. And so, yes, I think he deserves a great deal of credit, and rightfully so. I want to ask you, I mean, we speak about someone like Coach Rulani, who, we heard the situation where he wasn't paid at his club. So a lot of times we feel these are sometimes stories that are exclusive to South Africa. But and you say now you're working on the continent as a whole, and you're working, as part of the global body. Something like the case at Wydad. I mean, what happens in a case like that? What's the situation behind all that?
Well, I don't know all the facts, but what I can tell you is that if they've not paid him, I understand they've settled. But if, let's say, he's not been paid, all that Roland needs to do is to go to FIFA. He must go to FIFA. He must go to the football tribunal, take his contract, say, this was my contract. I'm owed X amount. I have not been paid X amount. The football tribunal will sit down, and they will then adjudicate on his matter, without any bias whatsoever. You know what I mean? So they will then be able to say, okay, here's this case. He has not been paid. He was fired, terminated his contract. And I can promise you, if Wydad is in the wrong, Rulani will get his money. Yeah. All of it, including if there were any bonuses that ought to be paid, they will get it, because there you follow the letter of the law. And that's how easy it gets.
Now, again, a question that comes to mind for me, we've seen the Nurkovic cases. Obviously he's been awarded a certain amount, and obviously it hasn't been paid as yet. But we've seen quite a few foreign players in the South African space, but they take their cases to the mother body, to the global body. What's a South African player's recourse? He has to take his case to the local body before do we even have the latitude to take it internationally? How do South African players get to that point where they're, because a lot of times it seems they're unsuccessful locally. Can they then go to the international body to fight cases?
No. There's what we call an international dimension. All right? This is a foreign dimension there. Now, firstly, there's the National Dispute Resolution Chamber, where the locals will take their cases. And even foreigners can still take their cases there.
Yeah.
But that has to be compliant with the FIFA rules. You've got circulars within FIFA, whether it's 10-10 circular, 10-10, 11-29, that says you need to have an independent chairperson. And they also need to have players representative and the club employers representative within that particular structure. But it goes further. When there's a problem, you must then arbitrate.
Yeah.
Where is the level of arbitration? The appeal is at SAF. All right. Now, here's a problem with South Africa, and this tribunal must be recognized by FIFA. So you meet all these things, and you must be recognized by FIFA. Can have it in the collective bargaining agreement with SAF, that has signed with the league. But here's the trick. And that's why we talk about Danny non-stop sometimes. That SAFA is bankrupt. Now, the last level, which is arbitration, is not compliant because you don't even have the necessary arbitrators there.
Okay.
Because all those arbitrators, they are owed.
Wow.
They are owed lots and lots of money. Now, no one wants to do work for SAF. Now, when the foreign national has got a case, what do they do? Because this thing is not necessarily, it's recognized within here the borders, but as a foreign national, you can just go directly to FIFA and refer your case. You don't start here. They can. I know that South African clubs have always argued to say, no, but we've got an NDRC, let them take it there.
Yeah.
They can only say that once this National Dispute Resolution Chamber is compliant, and the compliance, lies within, let me just say, SAFA doing the right thing.
Okay.
If they do the right thing and ensure that they do not appoint, because they decided to appoint their own arbitrators.
Yeah.
And the PSL, the union, the clubs got together, they agreed on the arbitrator, on the tribunal members. At SAFA unilaterally appointed the people, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
You have to sit with the union, the club, and SAFA and appoint those, but it still owes them. And that is why the players, on the international dimension, they are then able to go directly to FIFA and get their money. And guess what? With FIFA, they don't play. If you owe, you owe. You can sell that team. You still need, even if they can get new players, new owners. Nogovic will be able to show and demonstrate that this used to be a Royal AM. Whether it's 5 years later or 6 years later, you still need to pay your money and so forth. So this is where the technicality, comes in.
That's very interesting. I think we'll wrap it at that. I think we're going to need to do this again, especially now that you're doing work on the continent and you say you're cooking something. We certainly want to be the first to know about that. This has been a Switch On Network. Thulagano, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I'll say now the former president of SAFO. Is that correct?
No, that's very much correct. But thank you so much. Not lost to football. We're still in football. And I think you as Switch On Network, you're doing a great job. And keep on, giving those voices a chance. And I think one of the things you must do, you must invite the union and have a day with them to really get to understand how these football is.
No, we certainly will do that. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. This has been a Switch On Network. Make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe. Make sure you ask the questions that you may want to that you're not sure of, and we'll do our best and endeavor to give you the answers that you need. Obviously, with the role players, with the stakeholders. Do stay tuned and make sure you, as I said, like and comment, subscribe. We will bring you up-to-date comments, up-to-date, conversations that will keep you at the breast of what's happening in football, not only locally, but internationally as well.